creative. So this to me is an ugly map. It gives me a lot of things bother me about it. We're gonna try something today that's called a chat waterfall, because I'd like to know what bothers you guys about this map, if anything. So in order to do a chat waterfall, if you haven't done it before, it basically works up in the top bar of teams. You have a chat box. What you're going to do is you're going to type your answer in there, but don't hit submit until I say, and then we'll all hit enter together and be able to have like a little waterfall of some things that may bother you about this map. So I'm going to give you guys just a second to kind of look at it. If anyone wants me to zoom in, let me know. But type in that chat and don't hit and submit yet some things that kind of bother you.
Thank you for joining us, Brandon. We're just doing a chat waterfall right now. There's a map up on the screen. If you want to go ahead and take a look at it, you can kind of type in the chat if you see anything wrong with it. And then when Sarah lets everyone know to go ahead and submit their answers, everyone's going to submit.
And on that, so on the count of three, on three, we'll go ahead and hit enter. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Or not.
We have no title, no inset map, no labels.
Yes.
Maybe the legend's hard to read.
Yes.
No scale or north arrow.
Oh. Yeah, so all of those are great answers. The legend is super hard to read. There's no scale or north arrow, so who knows, right? There's also no like identifying features in there to tell you where this is. There's no roads, no major symbols there. The other thing that really bothers me is these colors, to my eyes, are a lot. There's a lot going on. We have reds and greens kind of on top of each other, really pinks and greens. And there's a lot of kind of overlap happening where I'm not sure like if that red boundary is even on this map, or is it the purple? It's just hella hard. And so that's how we're gonna start off kind of this training, and those are all great answers. Also the title's missing. What is this even of? But so we're going to start off today of watching a video about color theory, because these colors can be a lot to our eyes, and it's not helping us to really convey what's going on in this map well to a user. So I'm actually going to stop sharing because I need to share with audio for just a second. There you go. And we'll watch this on color
Have you
theory.
ever wondered how some artists are able to find perfect color combinations that just seem to work every time? It's not just art, it's science, and we call it color theory. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use the color wheel and some basic formulas known as color harmonies to choose color combinations that are appealing, cohesive, and just look good. Using color harmonies, you can...
I just realized I was watching this video at a faster speed earlier. Let me slow it down so that it's back to normal. Sorry, everyone.
Evoke certain emotions, create a mood, or add context to your images. When you don't use color harmony, your art can appear bland and boring, or so chaotic that your brain can't process it properly. So let's start at the beginning. You may remember back at school where you learned about primary, secondary, and tertiary colours. We are taught that the primary colours are red, blue, and yellow. When mixed together, these make the secondary colours, green, orange, and purple. Take it a step further and you'll get the tertiary colours, yellow, green, red, orange, and so on. These make up the traditional colour wheel that was created by Sir Isaac Newton and helps us to understand how different colours work together. The traditional traditional colour wheel is no longer the only colour wheel that exists. There are other colour wheels and methods that are used by artists and designers to create a bigger range of colours when mixed together. These colour wheels are important and we'll talk about them in a future video, but when it comes to choosing colour combinations, the traditional colour wheel is still our best resource for understanding colour harmony and how colours work together to create beautiful art. There are 4 main qualities of each colour on our wheel. The first is hue. This is simply the colour position around the wheel and the brightest, purest version of each colour. Our wheel uses 12 main colours, but we can also work with all of the hues in between. Second, we have saturation. This can also be known as intensity or chroma. This tells us how vibrant a colour is. A desaturated colour is greyed out and dull, while a saturated colour is vibrant and strong. Then we have value. This tells us how dark or light a colour is. We can create shades of our colour by adding black or tints of our colour by adding white. We can also add tone by adding grey. And finally, we have temperature. The colour wheel can be split into 2 main groups, warm colours and cool colours. But individual colours can also change in temperature as we move around our wheel. A warm red includes more yellow and a cool red includes more blue. When we combine hue, saturation, value, and temperature, we find ourselves with a myriad of variations of each of our 12 main colours. So how do we use all these colours together? We can use our 12 basic hues on the colour wheel, along with some easy to follow formulas to create an endless collection of colour combinations that look balanced, appealing, and just work. These formulas are known as colour harmonies. The first and easiest is a monochromatic colour harmony. This takes just one base colour or hue from our wheel and uses different shades, tones or tints to create a group of colours. It's one of the easiest colour harmonies to create and looks simple, cohesive and organised. Next, we have a complementary colour scheme. This takes 2 colours from opposite sides of the colour wheel, such as red and green, or blue and orange. This type of colour scheme is great for creating strong contrast in your image. A split complementary colour scheme is similar to a complementary colour scheme, except one of the colours is split into 2 nearby colours. This keeps the high contrast of the complementary colour scheme, but also adds more variety. A triadic colour scheme uses 3 colours that are evenly spaced around the colour wheel like a triangle. These colour combinations are often bold and vibrant. Tetradic colours are 4 colours in a rectangle shape, made up of 2 sets of complementary colours together as one palette. These palettes work best when you focus on one main colour and use the other colours as contrasting accents. An analogous colour scheme uses 2 to 4 colours that are next to each other on the colour wheel. This is one of the simplest and most appealing colour harmonies and works best if you choose one dominant colour and use the other colours as accents. These different colour harmonies are a great guide to create colours that work well together. You can create more variety by changing the shades, tones, and tints within each colour palette, giving you endless ways to mix and match colours that look great. This can all be a bit overwhelming, but don't worry. After you've started applying these methods, you'll start to pick up an intuition and confidence for which colours work well together and which colours don't. Here are some general tips to help you. First, pick one dominant colour. Whichever colour harmony you choose, using one dominant colour will create a sense of balance in your design. You can choose one main colour and use the rules of colour harmonies to find other colours that work as accents or smaller details in your design. Next, use just a few colours. Simple is best. Adding too many colours in your design can quickly become overwhelming or chaotic to your viewers. Choosing just a few colours and applying these colour rules can create art that is bold, simple, and yet still interesting. Finally, you can use colour palettes for inspiration. Learning the rules of colour theory can help you know what works well together, but it doesn't mean you have to start from scratch every time. You can find colour palettes like those I've included in the colour catalogue that are inspired by nature or existing designs and naturally incorporate colours that look good together. Choosing good colour combinations doesn't have to be hard, and challenging yourself to use some of these tools and formulas can expand your skills and help you to be creative in a whole new way.
Okay, so that's color theory. And the reason I'm showing this is because while you may not think of yourselves as artists, when we're creating maps, we are artists. So we're using our maps to convey a message. And depending on how we display those determines kind of the usability to the end user who doesn't know a whole lot about what's going on necessarily. Because that's what the map's for. We're trying to convey that. So for this map, you guys all had great answers, like I said. So let's start fixing some of those things in this layout. So one of the nice things about ArcGIS Pro is it does help us. So when we come to our symbology, they do have color schemes when we have multiple things to symbolize, or we're using that unique values symbology that we can kind of come to, and it'll help us to create kind of that color scheme for us. And I find some of these are better than others. There's a couple that I use a lot, like if I wanted more pastels, that one usually a fair one to choose. It just depends on what kind of our goals are for it. So I'm going to come down and look for something a little bit usable, something along that scale, but you can still, of course, edit them. The other thing that I really like about ArcGIS Pro is how they organize their colors. So I find that if I'm trying to kind of keep colors together, thinking about that color theory, if I need a lot of colors, if you go across on this, these are all kind of in the same hue and value colors rather than moving like randomly or picking up and down. If you move across, these generally kind of stay in similar rainbow palettes, if you will. Since these are troughs and storages that I'm looking at, the logical thing in my mind to make them would be blue because they're water related. And so I'm going to go ahead and do that. But like I said, it's art. So just like art, some people have varying opinions, but it's kind of getting something that helps your viewer figure out what's going on. And I'm actually going to change these entirely to circles that are clear so that they can see through them, since I'm layering two different symbols here. That can be really helpful so that you're able to create distinct items, if you will. And the other thing is your outline width. You want to make sure you have enough outline there to, sorry, I want no fill color is what that's asking right there. And then I want my outline to be blue. So there you go. Now I have troughs. They're able to see through it so that they're able to see how this border kind of comes together and make it nice and hopefully clear to my end user. All right, let me go to trough and let me go ahead and choose the circle. And this one's still covering that, and I'm probably not going to be able to change that just because those are the actual locations of things and we're at a higher zoom in order to see the whole picture. So what's something that I can do though is I can change the size of that circle. So I can bring it down. I could bring it back to this nice dark blue and hit apply so that there's kind of a thing there, but see how it's blending into my other circle because they're the same color? Well, that's where my outline can kind of come and help to create that distinction and show that these are two different, like they're layered on top of each other, but they're still different. I'm going to make it thicker just to make it nice and clear. Yeah, so those are some things to kind of keep in mind. The other really good reason and that I made the storage is clear through is because we have pipeline connecting to it. So it's like coming out both sides and things like that. So it just helps when you're layering that much to think about things like that if it's important to the project you're working on. Let's see. Now this line, some of you guys kind of said it, the legend's hard to read. This line in particular, if you look at that layout, is like non-existent. It's really small there, but you can't even see it. I can't see it on my screen.
Sarah,
yeah.
real quick, we have a question. If they overlap, can you add a mini map on the side? Is that proper mapping?
Yes, you can. So overlapping is a great way to show like how far something is, or another good way, like I said earlier, if there's no distinct features on that map, like no distinct landmarks within it, having an extra map there is a great way to show like, okay, this is where this item is. So yes, most definitely. And it all comes down to kind of the goals of your map and what you need to convey to that user on kind of when you want to use that. Does that answer the question? Cool.
I believe so.
Cool. Okay. So I'm gonna change this yellow because it's rough. And like I said, I'm kind of keeping a theme on this map of, look, blue is my water. So I'm gonna come back and I'm probably, let's see. I'm debating right now because I don't necessarily want to use the same blue because my storage tank is gonna merge into that. So I'm thinking right now of how I want to display that this is a pipeline, and I might actually, let's see if I have. Like we've talked about before, ArcGIS has some available symbology, and I might go ahead and use this limit. It's a little bit different of a blue, and I'm going to make some edits to it, though. Make it a little bit smaller here. And go ahead and hit apply. And then I'm going to do one more thing, which is instead of having solid with an outline, so this is a little bit in that advanced symbology we've talked about, where I'm going to take away this outline here that's using a solid stroke that's thicker than this thinner blue. And that way I can create a dashed effect here. Just to kind of show like this is different. This is different, it's not solid. These aren't like my storage isn't, I mean, it is flowing through a pipeline, but it's something a little bit different to make that distinct for the end user. Okay. Now the next thing I'm going to address is the pinks. They really hurt my soul a little bit. They're just too much for that user. So I'm going to go to this gallery. I have a red boundary, but even that with the blue, it's just a little bit much. So I'm going to change that color because that's not really what this map is trying to convey. I'm not worried as much about the boundaries. They're just needed for the person to be aware of. So I'm going to make them black because it's going to make them kind of blend in a little bit more. And on top of that, I have two boundaries. So I don't think I'm going to need this boundary here. So I'm actually going to go ahead and select it. And you can right click and hit remove, or you can just hit delete. And I'm also going to remove this other because that's what it just popped it to, so that you just have your pasture boundaries. The last thing I'm going to change is, so this, which might be hard to see, is actually private and is technically white. And this here is state land, which is symbolized in blue. Let me drop that down so you guys can see that. So here it's a little bit more distinct, but once you translate it to the map, it kind of becomes hard. And especially if you're going to print this out, it's going to get scanned and re-uploaded. Those colors are going to get washed out, and they're going to look the same. So to kind of help with that, Oh, sorry, this is a gray, not a white. I'm gonna make this white. See if that helps. And it does a little bit. So then the next is I'm gonna go to this state land and I'm gonna make it a little bit darker of a blue. And that might be too much. Let me back that off. Better. Now, some things to keep in mind, like I said, the goals of the map. Is it important to this end user that that is state land? Maybe. Maybe not, because everything we're wanting our user to look at is on private. So it just comes down to the goals again. I'm going to leave it because I'm also going to make some more changes here. So the last thing is, like I said, there's no distinct features on this map to tell my user, where is it at? I don't know. So I'm going to go ahead and choose a different base map. So you do have the imagery with labels, and it might have something on it, it might not. And again, down to the goals, but I'm going to go ahead and use the topo map. And you could add things such as your section lines would help a lot. Get it so that you have a township range and then section numbers. This topo map does have section numbers on it, which might be a little bit more important to the end user to know, okay, this is, you know, either a gravity fed or is being pumped because we're talking about a pipeline. So things like that. It also starts to have this Lonesome Valley show up and this old railroad and this pipeline. So it just starts to give a little bit more features to this to help that end user know where it's at. Now, the other thing you can do is have a separate map and say, look, this is where we are. This is where this is. Or you could even have notes on your layout saying this is township range and section information to help them locate this. Okay. And the next thing I want to touch on is these labels. So you can see I have symbology going over my labels that makes them a little bit difficult to read at a glance. So to help with that, if I come into here and go to labeling properties, this is pulling from feature info, which if you remember is in your attribute table. If I come to position, so this is one way to move labels. I know we had a question about moving labels independently, and I did some digging. I was not able to find that. I feel like Esri has it, and I would have expected it to kind of be in here somewhere as an option, but I'll show you kind of a workaround if you really need that option. But in the meantime, so right now this is placement. So this is how the system decides where to place my label. And so right now I have the best position selected. You could also choose, you know, on a center point, which you can see kicks out one of my labels down here. I'll do that again since I kind of surprised. So I had this 510 gallon, 10,000 gallon storage under best position. When I say, hey, center them all, it kicks one of them out because it doesn't want to put labels on top of each other. So it kind of picks one. Well, I shouldn't say it kind of picks one. It probably picks it based on drawing order, but because I have storages being drawn above a trough. But you can pick some of these if you want them all to look exactly the same. When you select best position, it should be drawing based off of these zones. So right now I have it telling it, okay, don't put it in the upper left. This is 0. My first option that the system should choose is center because I say 1. The next option is 2, which is right above. And then 3, 4, 5. So to give you an example, let me switch this and go, I want this to be 1 and I want center to be 0. I don't know if you guys watch my labels, but they kind of did a shift. So I'm going to do it again. This is 0. This is 1. They shift based on what I'm telling it to draw. So let me do a more extreme example, and let's say I want one straight below. Now it's drawing it ideally straight below and then my number 2 position is straight above. So that's a way to kind of get your labels to move around based on what you need them to do so that they can become clearer. Now, I think I made them worse because now this 10-gallon looks like it's crossed out because of my symbology. So it's something to kind of watch when you're dealing. I found this works really well with just a handful of layers. So something simple like this. But when I have a bunch going on in a map, you really do need that like individual drawing to make sure you're getting them to do the correct thing because they can become overlapped quite often. And there's things that can help with it too. So there's ways to, on this, sorry, so we were over here on placement, the little bullseye. These are other options for positions. So I clicked over to this, and so it's saying, you know, remove duplicate labels. So like if you have the same label on something, it'll remove them and be like, okay, these are all this one. And you can also say ambiguous labels if they're, you know, within the same label or have overlapping in there. The other thing is this horse, and I'll be honest, the only time I'm really in here is when I'm dealing with like font sizes and things like that sometimes that are separate from symbology. So there's a lot of options in here to kind of mess with and play with. The other thing that I wanted to show you though is you can rotate your labels. So for instance, I can make them all at a 45 or I don't know, the -45 on the other way, depending to kind of help give some more options to move those labels around. And then, yeah, you can let them flip. You can let them do a lot of different things in here. Does anyone have anything like specific that you would like to see these labels do besides moving independently, which I'll get to the workaround that I know of?
Right. It's like we can keep moving on.
Okay, so I'll show you some symbology too, because something that can help when you have something where your label's like being crossed out by your own symbology is you can, oh, it might take me a second to find it. Hold on. See if I can find it in here. It might be under. Yeah. So if we click on class, I believe it's in here. Oh, maybe not. Sorry, I'm looking because you should be able to put a background on these labels so that you don't have appearance. This is where it's going to be. Okay, sorry. That was a lot of clicking probably for you guys. It's because I was looking for something and I just found it. So if you click on symbol, you have 2 options here. Rookie mistake. Always make sure you check all your options. So you have formatting, paragraph, and internationalization. But if you click on this, this is where the appearance is. So this is where you can change the size of your labels. You can make them bold, change the font, change their color. You could actually strike it through. You can underline them. But to help this situation, you can add sorry, not a halo. You can add a call out. And you can select different types, but you can give a background so that I'm going to make it white because my text is black. I'm going to add a boundary. And you can see it drawing right here, and you're seeing it's not applying to the map. It's because I got to hit apply. And I can make it have little boxes around it. This can help. It can be a lot too, depending on what's going on. And you can add a leader so that now it's kind of pointing directly to them. These do seem really close though to my symbology. I should be able to move them away, probably more in my position though than in that. Da, da, da. Ooh. And so I can start kind of backing them away from my items so that they can kind of be seen more clearly and not block as much of the actual information that I'm looking for. And this might be a really good time to, make them go to the upper right and kind of move them off or move them so that they're easy to read and things like that. Any questions on that? Because that was kind of a lot.
I think I may have one coming in.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If they come up, just let me know.
Yeah, I think you're good. They're saying that's great.
Okay. So now there was so you can really edit these labels and make them do what you want. If you're really, it's just not doing it for you. Like, I need these to move away. The only way that I know how to move each label independently of each other is to actually turn off that labeling property. And I tend to do it in my layout so it doesn't affect my actual map. But when I come to layout, which again is where we build our printable maps, I'll go ahead and hit insert, and you can add, a text box that you're then able to move independently. And you can say 5-gallon trough. And if you right click on that and go to properties, you're able to edit that box to create what you want it to be so that you have something you can move around independently. You can still give them that call out line even that you're able to move. But the really big downside to all of this is that if you have a ton of labels to do, this is going to take forever. It's not going to tie to your actual items. So like when you move this map in this layout, these labeling types aren't going to move with it. So if you can make the other one work, I highly recommend it. It makes sure there's no mistakes on it. Make sure you don't accidentally move it. And then as soon as you move it, you're never going to get it back. And if you're trying to manually move it, there is a back option if you catch it early enough. But something to keep in mind. But it does give you that flexibility of being able to put this wherever. I'm going to come back to my map though, and I'm going to turn my labels back on. The one more thing that this is really hard to see, so I'm going to go back here and make that a little bit thicker. Right here at line width, so that it's just clearer. Maybe a little too thick. Okay. So now to the layout. Now let's address these layout issues. So now my map's looking a little bit better, right? But it still isn't everything my end user needs. Let's start with the legend. I'm going to go ahead and go to properties. And then I have a title. If you don't, this is where I could edit that. I'm going to go to show properties. This is where I think some of the confusion on that is going to be at. So I'm going to remove the layer name, which you see it kind of clears up this legend a little bit. I'm also going to remove the headings because that's not too important for my user. And I'm going to leave this private state pasture line storage. Now, I made my private line white. You can't see that on this legend. It looks like a blank square. So that's something I should have caught a little bit sooner, but I can come over here and I can go ahead and add. Add an outline, and I'm going to make it 0.5 so that it doesn't distract too much, but so that once I apply that and I come back to my layout, it now has a box around it so that you know that it's white. And it's not really affecting my symbology on the map itself. Let's see. The next thing you guys kind of mentioned was there's no title. What is this map of? So I can go ahead and make this a little bit smaller. Go ahead and add a title in here right there and be able to drag a box. We're going to say pipeline map. And that is way too big for this look. So we can come here, go to text symbol, and go ahead and make that a little bit smaller. Maybe a little small. And this, so like I said before, I don't consider myself an artist, but making a map is art. So we kind of take our time, make it look pretty, if you will. Pretty and functional so that it's appealing to our viewer's eye. Make that smaller there. Like you guys said, we need a scale bar, so let's put that in. They give us some great options here like we've seen before. Go ahead and add one in. A good common courtesy is to not leave this in decimals because it makes the user's math really difficult. So go ahead. I think I'm going to leave it in miles, but I'm going to kind of play with this size. You can make it round also if you want to. I'm going to play with the size of it to get it to be either by 5 or by 0, something that'll help my user have easier math. So there we go. We have 0, a quarter, 0.5, 1, 1.5, and 2. That way, if they are using this to scale, it's easy. It's quick. It's easy. You're not having to break out a calculator. Well, maybe that's just my generation. But break out a calculator and have to calculate how far is that. And that becomes really important when I don't have something like section lines on there, where I know where a mile is. The next thing, like you all said, was a north arrow. And again, tons of options through ArcGIS. And so I'm going to add that there. And I'm going to kind of rearrange this a little bit to make it a little bit more aesthetic here. And ArcGIS does a great job of kind of helping you line things up so that it can all be in line. You don't have that weird thing for those OCD people, probably like me, who will see it out of line and be like, ugh, I can't focus because it's out of line. And the last thing that I like to do on my maps, and I'm going to zoom out even further. Sorry. Maybe too far. Is I do like to have what I call like a neat line. So if I come, I don't want text. If you scroll down in this graphics and text, you have the option of shapes. And I like to just add in a line that kind of encompasses all of that. You can zoom in and get it really exact because they have these scales here so that it just kind of makes your maps look more neat having that line in there. And it starts to really bring in your boundaries. When you do put this on, and like you can see here, I can't click on anything except it because it's across my whole map. You can right click and there's a order. This is your drawing order. And I'm going to send it to the back so that now everything is in front of it and I can edit everything again. And I don't know, it, again, somewhat personal preference. The fact this isn't perfect kind of drives me crazy, but I would fix that if I was making a proper map, but I'm not going to make you guys watch me try and line this up perfectly. But yeah, is there anything else I'm missing that people see that they would like to know how to put on this?
You guys, please feel free to speak up. I knew some other people might have the same questions, so help each other out. If there's anything that's coming to mind, just let us know.
Yeah, and I'm asking you because I'm trying to make sure I put everything on there. But if not, I know we had questions about how to, like, we just put in some work, right, to get this map looking the way we want to. And I don't always want to have to do that every time. Or maybe I want the same thing, but I want to just like change one thing, like maybe the title or something to it.
Real
Something
quick,
you can.
Sarah. Sorry
Yep.
to interrupt you. We have one for projection, or could you add an area inset map?
Yes. Yep. So how I would do that is, so this map frame, so this is how I got this map frame on in another video, but you can add it again. So I'm going to add it down in this little corner here. And so this is where I can activate this. This is where we could zoom in, for instance, into, somebody mentioned zooming into this, and see how my labels are moving with me? That's one of the really great things about using the labeling feature, so that you could see something like that. Come to layout. I'm going to close this activation. I can make it a little bit smaller, maybe even drag it to this corner over here, because that's kind of closer to where that is, to help my viewer. Ooh. The one thing I do not like about this is how Esri's map right now is kind of blocking that. So I'm gonna go ahead and activate this map, move everything up a smidge so that I can make that box a little bit bigger without covering some of that more important information. There. That way my labels are nice and clear still, and that Esri kind of disclaimer isn't affecting it. Good. Okay.
Did that cover for inset map, and did that cover for projection as well, or is there something more for the projection that we're looking at or that we want to see? Ever?
If it doesn't, please feel free to put it in the comments, and we will make sure to get it on the next training. The next training, well, we'll dive into that in a second. But yeah, feel free to keep going.
Here we go. And it also, they also put each app requires coordinate systems generally. Each map requires coordinate systems generally.
Oh, do you mean like which coordinate system you're using, or like
you guys can unmute your mics too and pipe in if you want. Typing in.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not exactly sure what you mean, because there's a couple of options that like which coordinate system we're using, like the data or the strat, or something else, but there's a way to do that, so it won't necessarily do it automatically for you that I know of. Somebody please correct me if you know better, but you can know which type it's using. If you come to your layer properties in the original map, you're able to go, it should be in this source. So this is the data source, and it'll show you which coordinate system, which spatial reference it's using. So like I've said before, all of my maps use WGS 1984, the web Mercator, because this is something that's compatible with a lot of the online apps. So if you did want to put something like this in there, I would just select all of it. Also gives you the option to copy it. And then I would go ahead and add in a text box in here that shows, sorry, that kind of calls that out. Probably a little disclaimer. Also, these text boxes are a great way to make kind of a disclaimer if you need it, or who created the map, or date the map was created, are all really good things to include, especially if you're going to have multiple versions of that map. I don't know if that gets at your answer. At your question. If it doesn't, please let me know. And like I said before, so I only looked at one of them, but if you're adding these into a catalog on the map, it won't let you add it to your catalog unless it's in the same spatial reference as the rest of your map. So that's a really good way to make sure you're using the same across and there's no projection issues within your map of it kind of one layer projecting differently than another. Okay, and that helps your accuracy. Now, to kind of get at, we spent a lot of time creating this map, so there's multiple things I want to show you. So if we come to this share button, this is kind of our putting this map out to the world in various ways. So if we wanted to export the layout, this is where you would do it, and I know we have our first video should have covered that. If you wanted to print, it's very similar. I'm not hooked up to a printer here, but you would just select print. Oh, maybe I am. And then this is kind of a layout of it if you wanted to have or needed to have a bigger map that had tiling, so multiple kind of pieces of the map that you then piece together. It would show this here. If you scroll down on this top one, and I'm just going to drop this down, this is kind of where you can edit all of that and make sure it's going to print out correctly as you want it to. You can also print to a file. I don't necessarily recommend that because in order to have a geo-referenced PDF map, which is really important to apps such as Avenza, which we'll cover at the next training, how to use Avenza, which is one of the few free mapping apps that I know of. You would want to export that layout to make sure that's geo-referenced. Oops, sorry. But this is where you do print, and you just hit print, and it should go along. If you want to save this layout, you can come to Layout File. Come to Projects, go to ArcGIS Training, and you want to save that as a .pagx file because that's what's going to let you import that into here, which I'll show you. So I'll hit Save. So it's saving as layout because that's what I called it. You can also change this name if you'd like to. But if I come to Insert and I go to New Layout and I drop this down, right down here, there's an import layout file. There's also one right here, and these are some options to you that Esri comes with. But if you hit this import layout file, you're now able to import this layout again. And so it pulls everything over. If I was in, let's say I'm not in my ArcGIS training map and I wanted to put this into like another project map, you can do that. You can import it. It likely would not immediately pull that other map in. But if you come to properties, this map frame right here is telling you where it's pulling that map from. So like if I select none, it'll do something different. If I select map, it's going to pull way out and I got to go back in. Probably going to have to go back in either way, but that's okay because I can activate. I'm going to right click on this and hit zoom to layer, and I'm back. A little bit bigger, but again, you can start editing and tweaking that so that it looks the way you want. This is also how you can get multiple different maps into the same. So like, let's say I needed to show this pipeline, and then I also needed to show a corral that's nowhere near this pipeline. Well, that in that map frame under properties is where I can pull both of those into the same PDF map. What else? Yeah, something that I forgot to kind of mention, but it's doing it now on this layout, is if you look down at this legend here, those red dots tell me that I'm not showing everything that's available in that legend. So if I hit show properties, only visible in a map extent, so that it clears it to it, and remove these again, well, those red dots go away, telling me I'm now showing all of my symbology within. It's now showing all of the legend symbology on the map. Yeah. I think that covers everything that I wanted to show you guys. Does anyone have any questions? If not, I have a question and a call out for you guys.
Yeah, go ahead, Sarah. What you got?
So in our next training, we're going to talk about Esri, or not Esri, sorry, Avenza. And Avenza is an app, like I was saying, that you can then take this map and put onto there. So stay tuned for that. The other thing that I'd really love to show people that we had a great suggestion by one of you all is how to take an ARC map and convert it into this ArcGIS Pro format. So ArcMap's the previous version, ArcGIS Pro is the new version. I don't have an ARC map though, so that I could show you guys how to do that. I kind of transitioned very early on. So if anybody has one that they want to be transitioned that I could share on one of these trainings, I would really love to show that, but I need one of those and I'm happy to mail you a flash drive. I know they're a little bit large and we can mail it back so that at either the next training or the training after that, we can show that to viewers and kind of have that as another resource. So if anyone has that, please reach out to Ronnie, let her know, and we'll find a way to kind of get that from you. Yeah, other than that, I do want to show. Let me go ahead and export this map. Let me find somewhere I can put, oh, we'll just look at here, sure. And then we can kind of look, so this was what we kind of started with. And if I can look at them side by side here. This is now where we ended. So these are our two maps trying to help our user, give them the information they need so that when they glance at this, it's nice and clear to them what's going on in there. But yeah, other than that, I hope you guys have a great day. Still kept it in an hour, so it was a lot though, I'm sure.
Thank you, Sarah. We appreciate it. And thank you guys for attending today. I hope you guys were able to take some knowledge away. In your registrations, I know there were some concerns that you guys supplied us with that were great about mapping and printing, train the trainer, producers, saving layouts, moving labels, which hopefully you got today. Functionality, geoprocessing, spatial analysis. We'll continue to integrate those concerns into our trainings. So look forward to those coming up. And then again, if you could take a couple of minutes and fill out our survey so we can continue to gather more content from you. So these trainings can really be dialed in and useful to you guys. But thank you, everyone. Look out for the surveys. We'll see you guys in August. I believe our next tentative one is going to be August 8th, but we'll send out some notifications for that. So look for those. Anyways, thank you guys very much. Sarah, thank you. And we'll see you guys in August. Thank you.